Hi, Maria.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Awesome. Henry Pacheco here. I know you and I talked earlier via email. This is my coworker, Chris Weber.
Hi, Maria.
Hello.
Thanks
Hi,
for
how's it going?
joining us.
Yeah,
So,
no problem.
Maria, in my email, I told you I said I'm from Milpitas, and then you wrote me back saying you're from Milpitas too. Small world. What are the odds?
Should
Yeah,
I step out?
Huh?
Should I step out on this and just let the San Franciscos go wild?
yeah, it's funny because I usually have to explain to people where Milpitas is, so I'm glad that someone knows where I'm coming from.
Same. I usually, if someone's from the Bay Area, I always say, "Oh, I'm from Milpitas." If they don't know, I'm like, "Oh, I'm from San Jose, San Francisco," because those are the only two big cities that people really know of. So
Yeah, I usually just say it's between San Jose and Fremont, and
right.
hope that people know what I'm talking about.
Did you go to Milpitas High?
I did, yeah.
So did I.
Yeah, cool.
Did we just become best friends?
Went to the same high school. It's funny because I graduated in '99, and this year's we're celebrating our 20-year, my 20-year high school reunion. We'll have a reunion this year in July, and so we have a planning committee. And I get the Facebook updates, and they're all saying, "Okay, we're gonna have like." It's interesting because our 10-year it was at Santana Row at the one of the hotels there, and this year it's like, okay, during the day we're gonna do a park with families, and then in the evening it'll just be like the classmates. So it's so interesting, like 20 years later, to see like like now you have families, and you know what I mean. It's
Not
crazy.
just partying.
So.
Cool.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. So you went from Milpitas High, and then how did you end up where you are today, being the beat writer for the San Francisco Giants?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't really play baseball or anything like that. So I feel like I got into it at a pretty, later than some, I guess. I guess my touchstone with the sport was really when one of my older brothers took me to an A's game for the first time when I was like 12 or 13, and I had never really been to any sort of sporting event. But I remember that day very clearly because I was just kind of captivated by the scene at the Coliseum. And it was really kind of the thing, the moment, I guess, that kind of sparked my interest in baseball and things like that. So after that, I kind of started, watching the games. I started, reading the newspaper to see the recaps of the game. And that's kind of what's, one of the things that kind of drew me into journalism. In college, I wrote my college paper. And then, beyond that, I started applying for internships. And I got the opportunity to do an internship at Sports Illustrated and then the Huffington Post. And then after that, I had ended up getting my first real job out of college at the Newark Star Ledger in New Jersey. And I started off just as kind of like a general sports reporter, but I did a lot of baseball, kind of kept doing backup for our main Yankees and Mets beat reporters at the time. And then a year into it, basically, our Mets reporter left, so I ended up taking over the Mets beat, and that's kind of how, I've been doing this ever since then. So I kind of jumped around a lot. 1 year on the Mets, 2 years on the Angels, and now I'm on the Giants. But now that I'm kind of back home in the Bay Area, hopefully this is a place that I'll end up staying for a long time.
Nice. How did it feel going back home to the Bay Area?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I think my family was really excited, to have me back. Basically, my entire family is in the Bay Area, so it's nice to kind of not having to jump around so much in terms of trying to figure out when I'm visiting family and things like that. It's kind of nice to be back to a place where I really haven't lived since I was in high school. So it's kind of nice to get back and kind of start to know like areas that I didn't really know so much growing up. I mean, when I was a kid, I was kind of confined to the South Bay mostly, San Jose, things like that. So I actually don't know a ton about San Francisco. So it's kind of nice to now work there and now have a chance to kind of explore, some of those neighborhoods and get to know, kind of the larger Bay Area.
Nice. And I don't know if you can say this on live TV or not, but because you're covering the Giants, but do you have a favorite baseball team? Did you have one growing up? Has it changed since you've been covering baseball at all?
Yeah, I mean, I was an A's fan growing up, but I think that your fandom definitely evolves as you kind of, once you get into this industry. I don't really identify as an A's fan anymore. I'm kind of more of a a fan of the sport, in general. I feel like I know a lot more about baseball now than I did when I was a teenager. So I feel like my fandom has just evolved. It doesn't really center around a certain team anymore. It doesn't really center around players. It's more so around the sport in general. You kind of find yourself rooting for different things. Now I root for 2.5-hour games. As opposed to specific players. So I think that's just it's just evolved, really.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, when I got this job too, and then covering the World Series for my very first time, that was kind of like a moment for me where I was like, wow, I'm actually covering baseball now. Like, this is it. Like, I made it to the big leagues, pun intended, but I was like, wow, I made it. Was there a point in your career where you're like, wow, I made it, I'm doing this, and can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it was probably, my first year covering baseball was 2016, and that was the year that the Mets made it all the way to the World Series. So I think getting the opportunity to kind of follow them on that run and be able to be there in Game 5 when, everything kind of fell apart for the Mets and they lost to the Royals. I think that was a pretty cool moment for me, just knowing that I was there and doing something that I kind of been wanting to do since I was a teenager. So I think that was a really cool moment for me and kind of made me realize, how lucky I was to be in the position that I am.
What did you, what's funny is Henry and myself and you, I'm from Boston. He's obviously, you guys, same high school. But we all ended up in the New York City area pretty young in our mid-20s. What was it like for you coming from the left coast to the right coast, and what's the difference that you found to go right in as a young reporter and work with the New York media? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I don't think the transition to New York was quite as stark for me just because I had spent 4 years at Yale, so I was already on the East Coast. But yeah, I think coming into the New York media scene as a young reporter is a little bit intimidating just because there's so many kind of established writers who have so many years of experience. And you can kind of see kind of the competitiveness that kind of brews between, all the different outlets. On the Mets beat alone, there's probably, 6 or 7 traveling beat writers. And, when I kind of came on the beat for the first time, I kind of felt like I was out of my depth a lot of time just because, my competitors were guys who have been doing this forever. And, I was 2 years removed from college, so I think that it was definitely a little bit intimidating, but I think it's also kind of a good environment to kind of learn from people around you, just because you can kind of study how, people around you kind of approach their job and kind of how they work the clubhouse, how they phrase their questions, everything like that. So I think that it was a really good incubator for me in terms of just learning from people who had been doing this for a really long time, and kind of, I think a lot of them kind of influenced how I go about my job now. So yeah, I think it was definitely intimidating, but at the same time, I think it was also helpful and kind of a formative experience for me.
Were they helpful?
To an extent. I think that, when you're competing against someone, it's not entirely in your benefit to completely take someone under your wing. But yeah, there are some people who are definitely really kind to me and really, encouraging, guys like Mark Carrig and Anthony DiComo, James Wagner. I think that they were all really nice to me, and we're still friends to this day. So yeah, I think that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So you've covered in New York, you've covered in Anaheim with the Angels. Now you're back in the Bay Area. Is there one place that you loved covering the most, as far as living there, the whole experience, the fans?
Well, I think it's been different. I feel like they've all had their benefits, and being in New York was cool. But I think it's really kind of a grind to be in such a huge beat. It's kind of not as easy to I guess build relationship with players, but at the same time, it is kind of a high profile market. So if you do good work there, it's easy to get noticed. I think in Anaheim, I think it was nice because it was a smaller beat. My first year, it was only, MLB.com, the LA Times, and the Orange County Register. Mm-hmm. It changed a bit in my second year because, they obviously signed Shohei Ohtani. So then there was kind of a flood of people from the Japanese media that kind of inflated the beat. But I think it was cool to be there and to, live in Southern California for a little bit. Obviously you never have to deal with weather delays there. So that was nice. So yeah, I think the Angels are technically they're a big market team, but I think that their fan base is a little bit more compressed than anything in New York. But you know, it was still a good experience for me because I felt like, you know, it really gave me a chance to kind of, you know, cover a team in a little bit of a smaller market. And you know, obviously covering guys like Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Albert Pujols was really cool. You know, but then I think when I got that chance to kind of come home, I think that it was really something exciting for me. So, and you know, the Giants is kind of, you know, they're kind of somewhere in between. They're obviously have a huge fan base, a very passionate fan base, with a lot of superstars as well. You know, guys like Buster Posey, Madison Bumgarner. But I think that, you know, in terms of the size of the beat, it's probably not as big, quite as big as New York, but bigger than you know what I had in LA. So I think that it's kind of a nice in between for me.
Nice.
Of all these teams, do you have a favorite Latino player that you love to interview or loved his story? More specifically, I always love their off-the-field stories, you know, more than their on-the-field stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, when I was covering the Mets, Yoenis Cespedes was obviously, you know, a huge deal. And I think that his story is about as compelling as they come, you know, given what he had to go through to kind of defecting from Cuba, and then, you know, to obviously get all the way to carry this team to the World Series in 2016, and then to kind of, you know, end up re-signing and then being the kind of the big guy in 2017. I think that he's probably one of the more compelling figures that I've had the opportunity to cover. You know, Albert Pujols, obviously, I mean, he's one of the best right-handed hitters to ever play the game. So I think that it was really cool to kind of be there for his 3,000th hit last year and to kind of just follow all the milestones that he's now kind of reaching in his career. So I think those are kind of probably the two biggest guys that I've covered in terms of, you know, people from Latino backgrounds.
So, Maria, I want to ask you, if a Latina or a Latino, you know, somebody in college or high school came up to you and says, I want to do what you do, I want to be a beat writer, what's one piece of advice that you would give them?
I mean, I think for any young writer, I think the biggest thing is probably just to get reps, you know, write as much as you can, read as much as you can. And, you know, beyond that, just like, you know, search for opportunities to you know, get some clips under your belt, you know, whether that's writing for your college paper, whether that's kind of applying for internships. I think those are things that are really huge in terms of getting your foot in the door and, you know, getting people to, you know, building that network that's really going to be huge for you. I think that a lot of the jobs in this industry are kind of, you know, it's easier to land them if you kind of know people and have a network in place. I was really fortunate because when I was in high school, I did a summer journalism program at Princeton University, and, you know, the people that I met there were really instrumental in helping me, you know, not only get through the college admissions process, but also once I got into college, kind of helping me, you know, giving me a heads up on to what type of journalism internships to apply to, and, you know, just helping me out with my application. And I think it's really crucial to have that kind of support system from people in your community and things like that. So I think that it's always a good thing to kind of, you know, ask for help and, you know, just know where to look for those type of opportunities. You know, I think that I definitely wouldn't have been able to break through without that kind of guidance. So I think everyone kind of needs that, to have that. And so, you know, I would just encourage people to like seek out mentors as well, because, you know, they're going to be really crucial for you down the line.
Absolutely. It's funny because I'm looking at your, we do a baseball card for the La Vida Voices, and it says your favorite movie is, you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, this Fever Pitch. But the reason
I love Fever Pitch.
Boston Red Sox fan right here.
Yeah. I'm like kind of embarrassed because I honestly have not seen a lot of the like classic baseball movies.
You don't have to.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of picked a more contemporary movie, and, you know, it's just kind of I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie.
And it's true. Like, I was literally dating a girl once, and she was like, we should go on this crazy trip on this weekend. And I'm like, I don't know, Seattle's in town. Like, it's September, it's going to be a big one. I don't know if the hotel will have the package. That relationship didn't work out. But Jimmy Fallon, it's real.
It is real.
Being a Red Sox
Love
fan,
that movie.
Real.
Love Jimmy Fallon in that movie. Did you see Moneyball?
Yeah. You know, when I submitted it, I kind of like was thinking back, and I was like, oh, I guess I could have picked Moneyball too. But by then I had already submitted my answer, so I was committed.
That's so funny. I know you said earlier too, like your brothers, you know, took you to your first game. Do you go with them still to the baseball fields? I mean, do they, you know, do you take them now to Oracle Park?
Yeah, you get them better seats.
Yeah, right.
No, actually, you know, it's funny. I don't actually have like free tickets for my family or anything, but I don't even think they would have interest in going to Giants games. But, but no, I actually haven't been to a baseball game with my family in a really long time. You know, the only games I go to outside of work really are to attend my like nephew's little league games. So, but yeah, besides that, I'm obviously like pretty busy during the season and on the road a lot. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't really been to a baseball game with my family in years. So, yeah.
That's so funny.
When you speak with the players and you do the Latino players, do you speak more in Spanish or English?
Spanish, yeah, definitely. I think it's obviously a huge benefit. So, I think it's definitely makes a huge difference in how they receive you and the quality of the answers they give you. If they can just speak in Spanish and not have to worry about being misunderstood or misquoted or anything like that.
And do you find it such an advantage for you to get interviews with everybody because you have that ability to speak Spanish, where you walk in a locker room and a lot of the guys, older maybe reporters, still don't know Spanish, and there's a star player just sitting over there in the corner and none of those guys go to him because they can't communicate?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that it's really crucial to have access to all 25 guys in the clubhouse and not feel like you can't go to someone because their English isn't great, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely huge in terms of giving everyone equal coverage, especially if they're deserving of that coverage. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely huge, and I think it's really big in terms of just elevating the stories of these Latino players, because a lot of them have pretty compelling stories to tell, and I think that it's key that people are able to access them and tell them accurately.
And how cool is it, or how beneficial is it, that every team has to have a Spanish translator now in their community relations department?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a huge benefit to them. I think that when that news was announced a couple years ago, I think a lot of the players were really excited about it and really kind of happy. I think a lot of them thought it was probably overdue. A lot of the players, when I talked to them about it, kind of brought up the fact that a lot of players, Japanese players or players from other Asian countries, when they came over there, they usually had their own translators, so they always thought that it was a bit strange that they were always kind of left to fend for themselves. So I think that it's nice that now they have that resource to turn to if they want it.
For sure. Also, I know reading your Vida Voices, you said that you're looking forward to seeing Johnny Cueto, continue building his way back from surgery. Do you follow him on Instagram or social media at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the more entertaining follows.
Isn't he, though? He's one of our favorites.
Updates on his dead horse or, his protein-heavy diet, with a lot of fish and his workouts. So, yeah, I think he's great.
I know. We had a segment on Pope, his horse that passed away. We showed some photos of when he had all those fish and he was laying down next to them. And then, his workouts right now, I think he's like one of my favorite. I mean, not only because he's a Giant, but, one of my favorite, players to follow on social media, because he's so funny. He's not like, oh, is this going to sound right? Or is this going to be like, he is just like being Johnny. That's what we love about Johnny Cueto.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to interact with him too much just because, he was obviously rehabbing his arm during spring training, and he stayed in Arizona to kind of continue that path. So, but yeah, I mean, it's clear that he's like a big personality, and I think that he has a lot of respect from all the players in the Giants clubhouse.
Yeah, for sure.
Who are you looking forward to doing stories on this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now I'm kind of working on a story about Pablo Sandoval. So I think he's kind of an interesting character to me, just in the sense of, I feel like he's experienced so much in kind of his baseball life, just coming up and being this phenom, and then, ingratiating himself so deeply with this fan base, and then obviously, kind of burning some bridges on his way out to Boston, and kind of, not succeeding there, and then coming back and kind of being welcomed with, with open arms. I think that he's kind of a fascinating figure to me, so I'm excited to kind of get to know him a little bit more and hopefully come out with a good story in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Boston guy, and he did not have a successful stay in Boston, and the fans kind of rode him hard. And then I interviewed him while he was here in Chicago with the Red Sox, and he couldn't have been nicer and funnier and whatever you want. I mean, he was still going through his, hitting 190 at the time, but He was like, yeah, I got time for you, and he gave great answers, and he was a lot of fun. I told my friends, they didn't believe it, but he's a great guy. So I'm sure that'll be a fun piece to write and learn from him.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
And it's interesting too is like when you see, because last year we interviewed Gerardo Parra, when he was with the Rockies, and then now it's weird to see these players like in a different uniform, and it's like, oh yeah, now he's on the Giants, but I'm so interested to hear about these guys, like when they transfer teams and like the camaraderie that they've built with the years with the Rockies, and then now he's on the Giants, and how how these players are accepted when they're moving from team to team, and so I'm really really interested to see what kind of season he has, and like how he's being welcomed in San Francisco. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also worth noting that it's kind of funny because Gerardo Parra and Yangel Solarte and Pablo Sandoval, they all go way back. I mean, they all grew up playing youth baseball together in Venezuela, so they all know each other, and they're like really good friends. So it's kind of funny to see them all on the same team in the same clubhouse. It's really clear that they have a lot of chemistry, and they all can kind of rag on each other and kind of form their own little. Yeah, I mean, it's really clear that they're all really close friends.
How is Pablo received back in San Francisco?
It's kind of funny because on opening day in San Francisco, I mean, obviously the guy who got the biggest ovation was Bruce Bochy. I mean, he's going into his final season as manager, and he's done a lot. But the guy who got the second loudest ovation was Pablo Sandoval. So I think that's
never forget the 3 titles, right?
Right.
So it's clear that he's still beloved in that city, and I think he always will be.
All the panda hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure if he could do it all over again, he would never have left.
Yeah, I think he's already said that a couple of times. So.
Has it? Yeah, makes sense.
Maria, last thing is your walk-up song, Selena, Amor Prohibido. Love it. What are the songs these players are walking up to this season? Is there anything that like sticks out in your mind that's like, oh, that's a cool song, or like I never thought I'd hear that, at a baseball game.
I mean, I feel like there's, among Latino players, at least, there's a lot of reggaeton. So Bad Bunny is like a hot choice right now, understandably. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are the ones that kind of stick out to me. I think Alex Verdugo had a pretty cool walk-up song recently. I think it was like mariachi, it was like Vicente Fernandez or something.
We just talked about that. He was Andy, who one of our coworkers. He was just at Dodger Stadium last week, and he said the same exact thing. He's like, Verdugo came out, and it was to Vicente Fernandez, and Dodger Stadium went crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of the first month of baseball so far? Any surprises or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest surprises are probably just like the start that the Red Sox have gotten off to. Like, I'm sure you're well aware.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and Yelich's month has been pretty incredible. So it's kind of interesting to see if he's going to be able to sustain that. So I think that those are two of the things that have kind of jumped out to me, at least so far.
And then, do you travel with the team?
Yes, not as much as we kind of cut back on our travel a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I was in Pittsburgh with the team this past weekend. I'll be in Cincinnati with the team next month. So, yeah.
If you come to Chicago, when the Giants come to Chicago, I think in August they'll be here. Let us know. We'd love to have you here in the studio. Talking about this, we talked to you in the beginning of the season, and then it'll be interesting to see, like how the Giants are playing out, how the season's actually playing out.
How Johnny Cueto's playing out.
Johnny Cueto's playing out in August, so we'd love to have you here in the studio if you come when in August with the Giants. So.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Then you can enjoy your Giants-Dodgers rivalry firsthand. That should be fun. Hopefully
great.
You get down there.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
All
right, Maria. Well, thank you again so much. And go Trojans. That's Milpitas Trojans, not USC Trojans, because I went to UCLA, so I will not say USC Trojans, but go Trojans.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Take
Maria.
care.
Good luck.
See ya.